Hey guys, this is Dagon123, and welcome to
Tenchicast!
Hello everyone, and welcome to the next exciting episode of Tenchicast, presented by Tenchiforum.com. Tenchi Muyo has seen just about every type of anime release you can imagine: OVA, TV series, movie, and special. The one often overlooked because of its nature is the fantastic story of one Galaxy Police transporter, a la the Mihoshi special. With me, I have a fantastic cast of people today: Crazed,
Hello.
Julia,
Hello, everybody.
Nil,
This is, excuse me, a damn fine cup of coffee.
and Shadow.
Welcome everybody, pull up a seat and stay a while.
Right off the bat, what did you like or dislike about the Mihoshi special, and why?
The first thing right off the bat that I like about the Mihoshi special is it gives Mihoshi the center of attention. She has her own story. We get to learn more about her history, what she does as a Galaxy police officer, which is something you don't see a lot in these other series. Most of the time she's just there. She'll mess something up. She'll go to sleep, stuff like that. But the Mihoshi special, all eyes are on her. She gets center stage. It's a really good story, and it's very enjoyable.
I can't say there's anything I didn't like about the Mihoshi special. I really liked how it was just fun and funny and silly. And I don't know if this is something silly to point out, but I really like the colors they used. I don't know, I was rewatching it to prepare for this, and I liked it. It seemed so vibrant and happy. I like how it focused on Tenchi and the group of girls, because that's my favorite part about Tenchi, is how they interact and their stories and stuff. And I liked how it was about them. And yeah, overall I thought it was really cute, and yeah.
There was two things that really struck me as special to the Mihoshi, special. The first was the art style, which we talked about a couple of days ago, how it has it's got a very interesting shade style compared to the rest of the series. The animation wasn't quite as good, especially compared to OVA 1, but the shading and the way that the characters were drawn was, it definitely spoke of a specific quality. Like, you could feel they had money going into this special for this one episode. The second thing I really liked was the use of unreliable narration, which is a tactic that is not used that often, and it's very tricky to get down just right. I can't even think of that many modern examples. Dragon Age 2 did one with the character who's telling the story, occasionally making things up, and then everybody else calling him out on it. In this case, Mihoshi is retelling her version of this story, and we're getting to see bits and pieces of her psyche leak in as she's casting the people that she knows and are right there listening to her story in this story. But you have to wonder just how much of the story is actually being colored by the fact that she's replacing and thinking about those people instead of what actually might have happened.
I'm pretty much gonna echo on what Neil said with the animation. It may not have been as fluid as OVA 1 and OVA 2 afterwards, but its shading was really well done. It was tri-shading, and that often in older days in the 80s and 90s was a sign that something had a lot of finance going into it. It was something that I really liked, and the way that Julia said, it was colorful. It really set the mood for the rest of the entire episode. I really can't say I disliked anything about it. I mean, it brought in the first look at the whole dynamic duo, which we'll get to later. It wasn't trying to be serious. I liked the way that it was just a fun little outing. It was a nice little representation of Mihoshi's past, which you can also infer may have been the very mission that they state in the OVA overworked her and made her more ditzy than she was usually. I have to say, I just liked it. There was not really anything I disliked about it.
First and foremost, I have to say that, and will agree with the majority, that it looks great. It looks fantastic. It looks just like any special should, in that it feels like a mini movie. Like, that's what a special is it's kind of the point of a special, is to give those a little bit more, a little bit of a taste of what it would be like if this were a movie. This, of course, predating Tenchi the movie, and like has also been stated by Neil and Shadow, the production value, while not necessarily the most fluid comparing to others, is definitely the highest, because tri-shading is something that you would see on Gundam, or very, very few other things used it, because it takes a lot more time to do that, and it gave the Mihoshi special a very unique look. Another thing that really makes the Mihoshi special is that it's just lots of fun. Like Julia said, there's comedy, there's hijinks, and it's a feel good. You never ever hit the point where you slog through anything. It's very upbeat, and it features Mihoshi. You know, Mihoshi often gets overlooked despite the fact that she is a very integral part of the Tenchi household. And for her to be able to get essentially her 15 minutes of fame, almost, a little bit more than that, it's great. It's fun to see Mihoshi having fun and everybody, you know, being crazy, and it's a really fun special to watch. The Mihoshi special pushed the envelope of what Tenchi has done as far as language and junk content is concerned. Did this affect the way you viewed the special at all, or do you think Tenchi could use more blunt, adult-oriented subject matter?
I noticed when they did use a couple words that, you know, aren't normally used, but it didn't really bother me. I noticed it, but it didn't really affect the way I saw it, but I don't think Tenchi should have more adult subject matter. I think there's enough, but that's just how I feel.
Well, the first time I saw the Mihoshi special, I did definitely notice there was a fairly drastic change in the humor and such. The first time I heard, you know, when they bust into Ryoko's house to go and arrest her, she calls Ayaka a slut. She's like, "What are you doing in my house, you slut?" And I heard that, and I was like, "Did I really just hear that right?" So I had to rewind, go back, and sure enough, there it was. As far as do I think it should have more adult-oriented material, I don't know. I'm more like Julia. I don't think there needs to be a lot more. You know, I like to remember it, Tenchi, as I saw it on Toonami. I mean, you know, edited, no nudity, no blood. Language too, of course. I didn't mind what was in the Mihoshi special. It was a nice change of pace. It definitely made me laugh, caught me off guard. But yeah, any future installments, I say just keep going the way that it's been going, because it seems to have worked so far in most cases.
I will say I was just like crazed where it caught me off guard. I noticed it caught me off guard, but I kind of kept going. I was like, okay, she just threw the word slut, and then she's like, "You bitch," and I was like, well, this is different. And there were a few other jokes later on, and there were a few references that came up, like the whole Tenchicast on crosses thing, or this line that always throws me off every single time whenever Ryoko's like over Tenchi in Washu's lab, and she sits there and she says, "Be quiet and leave it to Big Sister," and I either die laughing or I just go, "Oh my god." But in terms of it, it didn't really affect it. I mean, I found it funny. I mean, it didn't really detract from the humor and the lightheartedness at all. But I'm going to have to agree with what Julia and Craze has said so far, that the show has enough adult-oriented material as it is, like with the OVAs, and then the movies even more so, especially the last movie, except it focuses on it differently. It feels like it's good with the way it was going, and it's just a little fun thing that came to pass with this stuff, and they were just like, let's kind of make it a little less, let's make it a little less censored and just go a bit on the no holds barred side of things, just for the hell of it or for the lulz.
So going back to what Crazed and Shadow were mentioning about the use of the language, Evil Pie had actually been confused last night because he swore that the word "slut" was never actually used in the Mihoshi special. Well, I went back and watched it again because I remember that line being in there, and apparently there's two completely different sets of swear words used. The subtitles for that scene has Ryoko calling Aika a bitch instead of a slut, whereas Petrea's line delivery calls her a slut. And that kind of struck me as odd because, I mean, I haven't really done a full comparison of the use of the few swear words that do pop up in the rest of the series, but it just seems so strange that most of the time the lines were pretty much exactly carbon copied, whereas at least I feel, and I don't know, this is a personal choice here, the English version went with what I think is a little bit harsher of a word, which probably fits Ryoko's character a little better. But again, it does kind of catch you off guard when you hear this word escaping Ryoko's mouth, where she's never really gone that far before. Especially considering what was going on in the scene at the time, it wasn't particularly crazy or different compared to some of the other scenes from the show. And then the crucifix section in the lab towards the end. It was actually interesting because that's not the first time that religious imagery like that has been used in the series. And in Universe, they actually have a scene where Ryoko is going to be crucified during a retelling of a story, and then this picture comes up where they like take her down and forgive her, and there's like this happiness to it. But there has been use of crucifixion and religious imagery in the show before, I guess I have to look at the production dates because I'm sure Mihoshi Special predates Universe by a couple of years. But again, Universe was my first exposure, so this was I guess it didn't surprise me as much to see it, but it was definitely a darker use of the crucifix imagery. Should there be more of this in Tenchi? That is a good question. I don't really know. I feel like the show hit the perfect stride of adult humor with the sexual tension and the very rare use of the foul language that you get in the episodes, more so in the OVA than you do in Universe or in Tokyo. Violence wise, it was actually interesting because in Mihoshi Special, you see Kione get knocked off of a platform into what looks like going to be absolutely certain death, which kills me because Kione is my favorite. But that's the first time you actually see a character in the series get exposed to what is probably going to be exactly a death. And it didn't turn out that way, but it was definitely, that was a step forward in terms of the violence. You actually had genuine peril happening. She was going to die, and then it didn't actually happen. But it was different. It was definitely a lot more forward for the show. I think the show, the series as a whole, did just fine with its balance, and I'm perfectly fine with anything further staying as it was.
As far as more adult, blunt-oriented subject matter such as this, I think it's all about moderation, and I think that that's something that Tenchi has done, as has been said, very well. I'll throw up the example of episode 4 of OVA 1. The minute I say episode 4, I don't even have to say OVA 1, and people know I'm talking about the onsen episode. And, if the whole series was a gigantic fan service mess, the impact of that episode would have been lessened considerably. The Mihoshi special itself features a giant ashtray, an underage transformation sequence, crass language, and people being crucified. All of which are done, like for instance, I just named these off. You think of these and you think, wow, that sounds pretty, that might sound actually kind of bad. But Tenchi is able to do it tastefully, if crucifying people can be done tastefully, in a way that it never detracts from what you're watching. You notice it, it's there, but you never sit down and say, well, wow, I don't necessarily think that this took away from the experience. Your eyes definitely opened up a little bit, but I think the way that Tenchi has been able to do it so far is perfect. Do I want to see more of it? Not necessarily. I think Tenchi could pull it off, but I don't necessarily need to see that, nor do I want to see that. Like Nil said, the way that they've done it so far, counterbalancing the mature jokes with the sexual tension of the characters is very, very well done. And the only thing more quote-unquote adult-oriented that I want to see more of is drama in the form of Tenchi Forever, and not necessarily crass language or gags. The Mihoshi special features the first appearance of both Kiyone, Mihoshi's partner, and Pretty Sammy, both of which would become massively popular over the course of Tenchi's run for one reason or another. Do you feel like specials need to stay strict to a certain continuity, or should they just be made to be fun and have a good episode that everybody can enjoy?
It's kind of a tough question for me because I don't really know much about Pretty Sammy. You know, she got her own spinoff, and it's obviously very different from the mainline series in the way that it handles itself, but I don't have any personal experience with it. Of course, I'm very pleased with Mihoshi Special's introduction of Kiyone, but that goes without saying. As for the specials themselves, we already have such a fractured universe in terms of continuity that I don't think it would hurt to have specials exist on their own. Because as you can see with the way that Mihoshi Special did, like it's in OVA, but its content was questionable simply because, as I mentioned earlier, Mihoshi's not the most reliable person you want for these sort of things. Like, you know, I'm surprised the Galaxy Police even have her reports as you know, admissible to any sort of court hearings or what have you. Like, I would just toss it in the bin. I think they'd be just fine on their own. It gives the artists and it gives the writers a little bit of freedom to do what they want outside of the continuity. And if it ends up helping generate another spin-off, like, say, Kiyone Mihoshi Buddy Cop thing, I'd be totally fine with that.
You know, that made me think, I mean, if someone didn't see part of the Tenchi, maybe it would make sense to just have a special just be from that certain series. But I think it was just a fun thing for the fans, you know, because you know all these characters generally, and, you know, it's just a silly episode. Because even the serious parts in it, it's all a story. It's not actually really happening to these characters, and I think that makes it a little bit more lighthearted, and it gives it that feel, and I think that's just a really fun thing if you're into an anime to have these characters, you know, be a little bit like that and see them do that kind of thing. I guess, yeah, if you're not familiar with Pretty Sammy, that probably would have been a little confusing, but it's still funny to see Sasami transform into a magical girl all of a sudden at the end. And I agree with the last, but I think they should just be fun, and as long as it's a good episode, it's good.
I agree pretty much. I think we need more specials. I say, you know, go ahead and let them continue. They don't have to be stuck to one continuity versus another. I know with the Mihoshi special, there's a big debate over, is it OVA? Is it more tied in with universe? Is it its own thing? 'Cause, I mean, it came right off the heels of the OVA. Yeah, more specials is always a good thing to me, because it helps keep Tenchi relevant. We don't have these long periods of time go by where we're just sitting here waiting for new material to come out. You know, it would give us something to look forward to. It would give us a good laugh. More character development. Certain characters definitely need it. So yes, more specials is a good thing in my opinion. Let's get more of them.
I think I'm going to go for a mostly wipe across the board and saying, yes, specials are a really good thing, and having more would be excellent. However, there is a thing that I like to think about. With the Mihoshi special, we were introduced to Kiyone. We got to see the buddy cop dynamic. We got to see a perfect example of foil characters. And honestly, the way that they played it out, they were put into universe, and it turned out amazingly. We also got our vision of Pretty Sammy, and she got her own spinoff from a special. And in that case, I don't think specials should follow continuity. They can be fun. They can be random outings to just be something for the fans and not really anything serious. But if they were, I think what I'm trying to get to is, it's not about continuity. It's about whether it could play itself good enough to have something to work if something else was to be made. Universe and the Pretty Sammy series or Magical Project S. But for the most part, I have to agree. Specials, we need more. We need more, and it could be left up to debate as to what or whether the specials should have their own spin-offs based solely off of certain characters or certain plot elements, and that would be something to debate at another at another cast.
You know, one thing I really liked that was brought up was the idea that a special can kind of be like this. It can be like the prequel to a series. You know, we're introduced to Kione and Pretty Sammy. You can bet that if Pretty Sammy and Kione had not been ultra popular, they wouldn't have been introduced into Tenchi Universe and then Pretty Sammy getting its own thing. They're really good ways of gouging how people will react. And also, as Craze pointed out, if we get more on a regular basis, like the Oh My Goddess franchise, it keeps everything relevant and it keeps the fans, you know, subdued. It might not be a lot, but it's enough that people still are thinking about it and it's still in the public's eye, and it gives everybody a litmus test to figure out, okay, are we still going to get the same kind of reaction? Are we still going to get the same people coming back for more? And maybe we want to try something different, so let's put it in a special. Let's see how it fares. The Mihoshi special, I think we can all probably agree, was a success in that department, because the things that were featured in there would end up being featured in other series, and very, very much so would be, you know, cornerstones of Tenchi fandom. I mean, it goes without saying that Kione is a Tenchi girl, like, no doubt about it. Whenever people think of the core of Tenchi, it's not 5 girls, it's 6, and that includes Kione. And for something like that to happen, it's a whole lot easier to just say, you know what, we're not going to follow the rules of what just happened. We're going to see how this works. If it works, we'll go with it. And honestly, I've never, ever been a stickler on continuity. I think that the importance of an episode is not whether it follows its own continuity so much. Obviously, that's still rather important, but whether or not you're enjoying it. Because if continuity is making the episode suck, then I think you have a problem. So, in my book, I would say make it fun, make it something people will enjoy, make it lighthearted, make it whatever, but as long as people enjoy it, that's what matters. And we are going to open it up to general discussion.
I'm just going to say that with the idea, I wasn't really thinking all the way about it, but now that it comes to my attention, with Oh My Goddess having those specials, like you said, it keeps everybody satisfied. It may not be much, but it's enough, and that's the key. Like you said, with continuity, I'm not a big stickler for it at all. But if the specials are fun, then so be it. I mean, I guess I'm just really retreading what I was thinking at this point. If you want to have a special, by all means make more, as long as they're enjoyable, and maybe, just maybe, the characters may get their own spin-off, granted, if it's done right.
I wanted to go back to what Dagan mentioned about with Tenchi Forever and the mature content contained within. That has become my favorite thing of the entire series so far, because of its very adult approach to these things. Like, we take it for granted, the relationships between these characters, and it's all very comedic, and I don't want the whole series to turn into this very maudlin, navel gazing sort of thing where everybody's just constantly dealing with their emotions, because that just wouldn't be a very fun, very well paced thing. You know, the movie worked almost as a special on its own because of how it treated everybody so differently than normal. But that's the sort of thing that I would want to see Tenchi approach at least a few more times, is the inner feelings of the characters and putting them in more challenging situations that aren't necessarily like, oh, this comedic situation has arisen and now we have to maybe kind of get a little bit serious just so that things don't get too slapsticky. but then we'll get back to the slapstick before too long. Like I do want to see a more adult approach to certain things, and get that sort of inside information about different characters, because a lot of them are missing that. You only really got that with Aika and Ryoko in Tenchi Forever, and I would like to see that be done more. Like I said, every once in a while. But that is. I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I thought about that earlier and it just completely blanked on me.
One thing I want to throw in, and this is for anybody listening, I didn't find the Mihoshi special until after I had finished all of Tenchi. Like, had gone through when I personally had got back into Tenchi fandom, and for those in the UK and in Japan, they got the Mihoshi special with their complete collections. For us in the US, we got it bundled with the Pretty Sammy OVA, and needless to say, for Tenchi to come off of it watching OVA 3, I wasn't necessarily in the highest of spirits. So for me to find a diamond in the rough, kind of the light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak, in the form of the Mihoshi special and the Pretty Sammy OVA, it was very nice to end on that, because you go from whatever OVA 3 is, many words could describe it, to this lighthearted, fun retelling. You have the whole cast there sitting on Tenchi's porch, or whatever the Japanese home equivalent of that would be, and they're just shooting the breeze, and Ryoko's playing a Game Boy, and Mihoshi is just like, yeah, this reminds me of that one cool time that I had, and that was a really positive thing for me. So if anybody's listening and hasn't seen the Mihoshi special yet, I won't tell you not to put it after the first OVA, because that's where it came chronologically. But for me personally, to end the total viewing experience of Tenchi at that point on the Mihoshi special was really nice. It really capstoned it really well.
Like Neil said, Tenchi Forever, out of the 3 movies, is by far my favorite, because I enjoy the lightheartedness of Tenchi. I enjoy the slice of life, but when I want to see more of the romance stuff. I want to see it get more serious, like that movie took with it. Special episodes like the Mihoshi special, I'd still like to see, for the lighthearted stuff. As I said, make more of them to keep it, keep the popularity up, keep it in people's minds, and get them talking about it. And use the specials as the Mihoshi special was. The Mihoshi special was the gateway to Universe. It was the gateway to Pretty Sammy. Maybe you can use future specials as gateways to other, main projects, so to speak. So yes, more specials again.
I want to thank everyone in here for joining me today doing episode 17 of the Tenchicast on the Mihoshi special, especially to the 2 newcomers that we have today. If you're interested, come join the discussion at Tenchiforum.com, subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on iTunes, and if you're a translator, we would definitely be interested in getting in contact with you, because we have many projects that would love to have another set of eyes on them. Until next time, stay gold.